So many GED students are struggling. Like Justin, who sent me this image, they're finding that the GED prep materials that are out there just do not work for them. I'm Kate from Light and Salt Learning, and I've helped thousands of students over the years get their GEDs. First as a tutor to adults with disabilities, then as an adult education instructor, and now I make educational resources with Light and Salt Learning, including the GED Math Crash Course website. And I am so excited to share with you our new project, a series of printed materials, student workbooks known as the Personalized Path Learning Adventures. We've just released the first book in this series, Crucial GED Basics. But before you think, oh, this is just like every other book I've heard of before, let me assure you, these are not the same basics you might be used to. The basics that we'll cover in this book are those that are going to build a very strong foundation in what's really needed for the GED, for college, and for life: mathematical reasoning and the language of algebra. And it's not just the topics that we're going to cover that make this different. The way the book is set up, the way it's organized, the way students are going to go about learning, that's very different as well. First, and perhaps most importantly, it really is going to be a personalized journey for students. There's a lot you're going to see in there that gives our students choice, that allows students to hit the material right at their level. And for those students who struggle, what is their level? Where should they start? There's a trail guide here that will help them to know exactly how to use the book to their benefit. With every lesson, they'll have a chance to assess their progress and decide, where am I at with this topic, and practice accordingly. Even when the book is finished, when it's done, some students will be ready to test right then. Other students will need to continue with these same skills, building them to a more complex level. And still others will need to build other skills, moving on to other units. So there's a lot of guidance to help them do that. The book is focused, and in two ways, I mean that. It's really focused on those super important skills that really will provide a score boost that really preps students for college. But it's also focused in that it doesn't bump all over the place. It really allows students a deep dive into the material until they get it, which always gives a bigger score boost in the end. Through frequent review and layering, students are going to get to see how these topics apply in deeper and deeper contexts. Now, you might wonder, well, how is a beginning level student who has very little math skills going to do such complex math right from the start? There are a ton of layers of support, the same ones that I always provided for my students. There's guided notes to help them learn to take notes, checks for understanding, solution video playlists. There's even a Facebook group your students can join for 24/7 support. So when you're not able to be there for them, they'll still have help. Each lesson has guided notes to help them learn the note taking process. Another thing they struggle with is, did I really get it? Do I understand this concept, or what level am I at? There's checks for understanding in each lesson that will help them to do that. Each practice assignment has a link and a QR code that leads to a YouTube playlist of solution videos. It's going to be like your students have their own personal tutor to help them when they get stuck. Besides being really accessible to students who have learning struggles or studying struggles, you're also going to see that it's accessible to students who have trouble learning through reading or have trouble with tech access. The teaching material, the classes, they're not written down, they're in video form. And you're going to find these links and these QR codes that lead to those class videos. Even your students who don't have computer access, don't have a tablet, don't have a laptop, generally have a smartphone that they can watch YouTube on. We are going to favor depth over width every time. We have a bad problem in mathematics education that we try to teach a little bit of everything. I know, I get it. You want your students to know everything before they take the test, but what happens is you cover everything and they remember Nothing. I know you've heard it. I know you've seen it. You see those tape scores, you're like, we did all of this, you guys. We just need to allow students the practice time to really understand a concept. And we'll see their scores boost right from the start without covering everything. So, how can we do that effectively? Well, one way is by teaching these overarching concepts. Great example. Addition. When I look at the basic operations, we teach that addition is combining groups of the same kind of thing. Right there, by teaching that one rule, I've covered a ton of algorithms that you guys would teach in a ton of classes. We're looking at adding and subtracting whole numbers, fractions, decimals, variables, you guys, combining like terms. It's all summed up in that one thought. We're going to do lots of reviews so they do have that chance to see the mixed practice, to use those skills that they've learned and really make them just solidify. Another huge thing for me is to have those gates wide open. Big problem in traditional mathematics is the gates that we set up for our students. There are certain skills that if you can't do them, we won't let them pass. We won't let them move on. Multiplication tables are one of those. Long division is one of those. There's quite a few. And the fact is that math is not as linear as we set out. There's lots of different pathways. Open those gates, you guys. We can do that by isolating skills as we do in the beginning level practice. So maybe somebody doesn't know how to add and subtract fractions. Well, that doesn't mean that I can't introduce the variable x to them. If I just take the fractions out and isolate that one skill, they can still learn algebra. Now, I know that you GED teachers, you really want to help your students. You like to teach them all kinds of tips and tricks and shortcuts and step-by-step processes. And it seems like it's helping in the short run, but in the long run, it often doesn't help. You'll see students who've perfected all of those things one at a time. Then they go to take a test and it seems like they're all mushed together. They're all mixed together. And that's because we teach without understanding. I promise you, a few deep concepts understood will help your students every time more than memorized algorithms or step-by-step processes. For example, a student who understands addition will never ever line up decimals at the wrong place. They won't try to combine 3x and 4y because they get it. They're not mixing up some memorized steps. Yes, for some students, especially those who were able to practice at an advanced level, this one unit, it's going to be enough. But for other students, they're going to need more. And so what you're going to see is the various units coming up. You can use the crash course or the future books we'll be releasing. They layer. We're going to hit on the same skills in all these different contexts. So those students that you have that take 4, 5, 6 semesters, they're not going to be repeating the same content over and over again. And yet they're still going to be progressing in their GED goals as we naturally review and layer these skills up to a GED level of complexity. But there are going to be some of your students who, after this one book, they're ready. And guess what? I got a really good, really accurate practice test in here for you on this one. I'm super excited about it. And for those who aren't ready to practice test, what should they do? Well, again, this little fork in the road is going to help them to determine and you to determine their next best step. Guys, I am hoping for a revolution in GED education, and who's coming with me?